I used to think doing the work meant having as many big experiences as possible. Turns out I was completely wrong. Let's unpack and get into why. Welcome to The Vital Point. I'm Jonathan Schecter, breathwork facilitator, integration coach, and fellow traveler on the path of healing and growth. This show is here to inspire real action in your life, whether you're just beginning or deep on your journey. You'll hear practical tools, guided practices, and conversations with those walking the path. Because the truth is, transformation only happens through practice. That's the vital point. So take a deep breath. Let's begin. What does the work actually mean? We talk about it a lot, right? Breath work, working with psychedelics, inner child work, parts work, shadow work. What does inner work actually mean? For me, inner work is an intentional movement towards wholeness. And there's a larger frame for that I'm going to get into later on in the episode. Oftentimes, when I'm explaining things to people, I like to start with what it isn't, just to dispel misconceptions. The work is not inherent in the experience. Sitting in an ayahuasca ceremony or doing a heroic dose of mushrooms or even going and doing breath work doesn't mean that you're actually doing the work. Lots of times we are using those experiences as a way to bypass our authentic experience. There's lots of people in the psychedelic community that are chasing peak experiences without actually processing or integrating the things that are coming up for them or addressing the root cause. There's another podcaster that I'm quite fond of that has a meme about, there's lots of people in Topanga doing ayahuasca every weekend that can't find their car keys. So I used to think that doing the work meant having really big experiences. The breath work that left me totally like shaking and with tetany and, crying with visions and going into a therapy session and filling the wastebasket up with tissues. The big things. Oh, I must be doing the work, right? And over time, I've really evolved in my own understanding of what the work is, and that sometimes the best work is the most subtle. As I was doing some research for this episode and doing some writing and gathering my thoughts, I came across the definition of work as it relates to physics. And I thought, this is good. So in the context of physics, work means the transfer of energy from one object to another when a force causes a displacement. This encapsulates what the work is so well. First of all, there's a transfer of energy. When you take a psychedelic, when you enter into a breathwork session, or even a somatic session, there is energy that is being moved. So work is really moving energy through intentional action, right? There can also be a displacement that has already taken place. Sometimes the body is seeking a resolution and the work helps to complete it. Sometimes the work is the displacement, right? Just the energy moving. Maybe there's a block. Maybe there's something that is stuck that is starting to move again. I think it's worthwhile just taking a pause for a moment and asking yourself, where in your life do you feel stuck energy right now. You don't have to overthink it. It's not a cognitive type of a question. It's more something that will just jump out at you, something that you know, something that's quiet. And, you don't have to feel alone with this. I have things that I'm working on all the time, just in the last couple of weeks, it's been working with ketamine to get over uh, limiting beliefs and uncovering some memories that occurred around some traumatic events that I haven't had a chance to really process that came up as a part of that. Working on my relationship to be a better communicator and a better partner. And later on in the episode, I'm going to tell you about a client who shifted and opened in a very unexpected way, not during the psychedelics that they were working with, but in the preparation and integration. The whole process of doing the work, this transfer of energy, um, is really relying on something deeper. Let's unpack one layer deeper from physics. There's a part of us that already knows how to heal. Stanislav Grof called this the inner healer, the part of the psyche that is in this holotropic process, and holotropic meaning moving towards wholeness. This to me relates to Buddha nature as well. The part of us that is unchanging, unstained, that's not dependent on anything else. Like at our core, we have this Buddha nature, this seed of Buddhahood. The fact that it is a seed is what creates the conditions for us to be Buddha. In other words, it is our nature. It's our birthright. It's what we already are. It's just covered up with all the things that we think we are and the problems that we have and the thoughts and the emotions. But it always has been there and it always will be there. And for me, in the last couple of years, the work of Stanislav Grof has really helped to illuminate this in a different way. The inner healer can spontaneously emerge because the inner healer is always there, right? You may have heard stories about people having a Kundalini awakening or, just these spontaneous transpersonal experiences. And certainly, if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably curious or have already had experiences where you've intentionally done the work. You may have a relationship with this part, this inner healer already. This inner healer emerges when we're in these expanded states of consciousness. The non-ordinary state or the expanded state actually catalyzes that movement towards wholeness, right? You hear the sort of cliche of the ayahuasca ceremony being, 5 years of therapy in one night, right? I've had those experiences in breath work. Anything that is moving the needle as far as that transfer of energy has the potential to move towards wholeness. What I would suggest and what I've learned in my own time on this path is that there's a way to be more intentional, that you don't have to, hope for this to happen. And it is individual. There's no one blueprint for everyone. And there are some best practices that are pretty much universal and that you can find a way to adapt for your own work. Let's just try something really quick. Assuming that you're not driving, you could close your eyes, but this will work if your eyes are open as well. Take a moment and just allow your attention to drop into your breath. Notice what your breath is like. Start to pay closer attention to it. As you do that, do you notice that the breath gets a little bit deeper, a little bit slower? Maybe you get a little bit more present in your body. Get curious about what you can feel. How's the temperature around you? What are the sounds that you hear? What other sensations are you connected to right now? And what does connecting to this bring up for you? Does it make you feel more calm? Do you maybe notice where there is some agitation or anxiety? What would it be like to drop into this more often? Look how easy that was. It's a simple practice that we can add that starts to turn the attention towards that space where the inner healer can emerge. Some of these things are so simple that I think we have a tendency to overlook them. We're looking for the big, flashy thing, the thing that costs a lot of money or seems like a secret. When really a lot of the preparation work to do the actual work is basic. It's simple. It's not always easy, but neither is the work. Getting ready to do deeper work, you may be completely lost about that. You may have heard about set and setting. I think it's also about the skill set that you bring in, right? Your somatic awareness. Do you have a mindfulness practice? Do you know how to work with your breath to calm yourself down or even to intensify what's coming up emotionally? And certainly, depending on the medicine that you're working with or the type of work that you're doing, there are some universally recognized things like eating cleaner, limiting your media consumption, sex and drugs, and certain foods or alcohol. But what I found to be even more important is the practices that you're doing to prepare your nervous system. If your nervous system feels open and fluid, and you feel like you have capacity, then it's not going to shut down and contract when something intense occurs during your journey or the other work. I'm working with a client right now, and they are very enthusiastic about really maximizing the time that we have together. You know, they have some complex trauma from their childhood, and they have a more recent traumatic event. And whenever we sit down and do a session, they want to jump right into the most intense part of the trauma. It's like, yeah, I want to get over this. Just want to move through it. And at the same time, the more that they move towards the ground zero of this traumatic event, the more that their nervous system throws up walls. They might start to feel anxious, like they're going to have a panic attack, or they might just go numb. Oftentimes, we come out of the session and they tell me that they feel like they're in a trance or hypnotized, almost like a dissociation, even though they're talking to me the whole time. So it's really about, can my nervous system handle the thing that's coming up? And this is something that's baffled me in the past in my own personal work. Like, for instance, I've done more than my share of psychedelics and plenty of breath work. And it wasn't until 2 or 3 years into this current kind of iteration of doing the work that certain traumas began to come up for me. And initially, after this just super, super intense experience, the question that I was left asking myself was, why didn't that come up sooner? I knew about it. I knew it was traumatic. I know that the body keeps the score, that when I'm working through trauma, there's an unfinished process, and that's what is happening in that, trauma work or in that somatic work, is that the experience is completing, right? Because it's actually done. I'm not experiencing it anymore. But if that was the case, and if this energy or this incident was buffered, you could say, in my body, why didn't it come out earlier? What I come back to time and again is that the body and the mind and the nervous system unwind when there's safety. It's really hard to force these things. It's one of the reasons that I prefer breath work and lower doses of psychedelics for clients before jumping into bigger macro doses. And I'm really excited to share an episode coming up with you this season with Pierre Bouchard, where we talk about this. But we have to build capacity. We have to go through the process of finding safety inside of ourselves so that we can open to these bigger things. The healing process can be like peeling an onion, or, to use another analogy, we have to build muscle at a basic level to be able to move on to Olympic lifts and really heavy lifts, right? You don't walk into the gym day one and start throwing up the Olympic level weight. And that's one thing I think so many people are getting wrong right now in the psychedelic communities is I can just take more medicine. I can override this experience. I can override my own internal safety mechanisms. And that's going to get me through it. That's going to get me to process this thing that I keep coming back to, or I keep getting stuck around. And that's just simply not how it works. That's how we end up blowing out our nervous system. That's how we end up having to integrate months or years after an intense psychedelic experience, or that's how we end up coming back and back and back and back, not feeling like anything's actually changed. One of my breathwork mentors, who's on an upcoming episode, Diana Medina, is fond of saying that we have to feel safe enough to get unsafe. And that's what the preparation work is really doing. And that's what you can do when you're working with someone that can help you expand that capacity. Like some of the breath work that we're doing is really pushing up against that edge, helping you to feel a little bit unsafe so that you're expanding the capacity for what does feel safe. So that when that experience comes up, you don't freak out and try to leave or shut down. And if this is surprising to you, don't worry. You're not alone. Most of the people that I know and most of the people that I talk to, they think that prep is like surface level. At best, they might be doing a dieta, right? Where they're not eating certain foods or alcohol or, watching TV. I know when I did my first ayahuasca ceremony, a week before I stopped eating some certain foods, and I wasn't drinking already. So I was already, could check that off, and I wasn't watching a lot of TV. So that was good. But I was still listening to a lot of junky music, and I was still smoking pot every day. And thankfully, I stopped doing that a couple days before the actual ceremony. And there was a lot of purging. But most people are doing a dieta, and maybe they're setting some intentions and, doing some superficial stuff that is helpful. But, cleaning your house and doing some journaling and thinking about, how's my mind? What do I want to get out of this? But have you ever rescheduled a journey or a ceremony because mentally you weren't in the right space or it didn't feel good in your body? Do you have a meditation practice? Do you know how to build the capacity in your nervous system? Do you have resources and tools to help you do that? So it's more than just having like a playlist ready and, some flowers on the mantle. when the prep isn't done, when we skip the prep, there can be, consequences. We might not get what we want, what we're hoping for out of that experience. It's not enough to do spontaneous work. I think like that's honestly beginner level, right? Pray and spray. Just hope for the best. That used to be me. There's parts of me that misses those times, where I could just randomly eat mushrooms at a show, or, during the pandemic, there was a lot of big mushroom experiences, and not always a whole lot of integration between. Sometimes those spontaneous openings happen in breath work. People are really shocked by what comes up, especially when they're not convinced. It's just breathing. How intense is this going to be? I've been shocked at things coming up in, therapy sessions. Like I said earlier, I used to think the times where I'd fill the wastebasket with tissues, those were the good therapy sessions, right? But having preparation, real preparation, things like meditation and breath work and being able to be present in your body so that when things are coming up, so that you can feel dysregulation or resistance. That's what really lets the insights land inside of yourself and stick for a longer term. I find myself now in situations where I feel like I'm going deeper and getting more insights and more actual actionable change with less medicine or less of a dose. I don't think that I would be getting the same benefits or shifts from the work that I'm doing with ketamine a couple of years ago. And certainly, there were a couple of ketamine experiences that were completely recreational that didn't do anything for me. There was no integration, no insight, nothing other than going into a K-hole. So, if you skip the prep, it might be a great time. Hopefully you can stay open to whatever comes up, but you're just at the mercy of your nervous system, of the medicine. There's no anchor. And you might walk away feeling puzzled, or you might walk away feeling like you didn't get anything out of it. Sometimes it's like walking through a mansion and, opening random doors. So I think you have to ask yourself the question, are you relying on spontaneous moments, or are you relying on the medicine to do the work? Are you giving your power away, or are you taking responsibility for building a solid foundation? Are you hoping that the medicine's going to do it for you? And I get it. That's what medicine does in our culture. It's the commercials that we see for pharmaceuticals. I have a headache, I will take this. I have erectile dysfunction, I will take that. My hair is falling out, I'll rub this on. That's not how psychedelics work. The psychedelic is going to show you where the work is. And then you have to do it. And so even if you are in the psychedelic experience, if it doesn't feel safe to approach that material in your body, it's not really going to happen. So I want to share with you some powerful shifts that I've seen from clients who've done the kind of preparation that I'm talking about. Before that, if this is resonating with you, I have a new coaching container called Crossing the Threshold. It's specifically designed to help you feel ready to take that next step in your inner work to move through resistance, fear, anxiety. Whether you're new to the work or you're experienced and you're just not getting the results that you would like. It's a mixture of breath work, somatic experiencing, meditation, and working together to help your nervous system feel safe to cross the threshold, to take that next step into the unknown. It's made up of 6 preparation sessions. Those can be done at any rate that you would like over a 3-month period. There will also be a breathwork session. You also get access to the Blue Magic Alchemy school community. So there's additional meditation, breathwork, and somatics that you'll have access to recording and live, as well as the Blue Magic Alchemy community. And depending on the medicine with which you're working with, I will make you a special, unique playlist that you can use in your journey or for breath work beforehand. So you're getting the added benefit of Blue Magic Alchemy and my vast experience curating music for expanded states of consciousness. So these are real practices that can help you to feel safe and ready to take that next step so that you can finally get the results that you're looking for out of your psychedelic work, or just feel safe finally taking that first step across the threshold. So one client story that sticks out to me is a gentleman I was working with several years ago. And he came to me, and this was at a time when I was just starting out with coaching. And he actually helped me develop what became my first course, High on Your Own Supply, and then became the Elevate coaching container that we ran a couple of times last year. But it was, he wanted to learn breath work, and he was doing a lot of work with mushrooms and high dose work that even I was like, whoa, that's a lot, like more than I'm interested in doing. And I kept saying, hey, I think you should do some integration. Don't you want to do this integration coaching with me? And he's like, no, I just want to do breath work. And he had even told me that he had gotten a download like during one of his mushroom journeys that he needed to learn breath work. But as much as I wanted to, as much as I thought, gee, like we could do so much more than just do breath work, that was what he wanted to do. And so at the end of the day, I said, okay, fine. And because I'm me, breath work was a bigger spectrum of mindfulness and somatic awareness. I taught him some basic somatic tools and practices. And then we got into, using the breath to regulate the nervous system, using the breath to access an altered state. And we did a couple of breathwork journeys together. And so at the end of the coaching experience, like I did, like a recap with him and asked him for a testimonial and asked him some questions about what the experience was like. And one of the coolest thing happened. I asked him, what's the biggest thing that's happened as a result of working together? And he said, I finally started this business that I've been trying to start for a really long time. And I was like, what? Tell me more, because we didn't do any business coaching. We didn't talk about business. And he said, yeah, I don't know what it was. I've been trying to start this business for a long time and I just kept feeling stuck around it. And since I've been working with you, I've been able to just start. And it's just a great example of what happens when your nervous system feels safe, and what happens when the nervous system feels open to expansion. And none of it was intentional. None of it was like, hey, we're going to sit and, talk about your business and work with the feelings that come up. It was just getting him more into his body and having the nervous system be more regulated. And he had talked about like, oh, my partner is telling me that I'm in a better mood and I'm having a better time around my family and things like that, things that let me know that you're regulated. But starting a business finally, after feeling like you're stuck and that you don't know how to work through the resistance, was a huge thing. And even the client that I mentioned earlier, as we've approached it in a more titrated way, they've been able to get closer to the actual trauma. I've had people come out of breath work and say, oh, this is the first time that I feel like I'm in my body or that I can actually relax. There's magical things that happen when we do the stuff that is not sexy, that seems basic. Putting in the work for meditation, somatic awareness, breath work. Even other breathwork facilitators that I've talked to on the podcast, there's no magic technique. Oftentimes when I ask them the question, like, what do you do during the day? Or what's the number one thing that you think is important? It comes down to basic awareness practices. Just being able to be present in your body, and not just when things are going well. Can you stay present and aware when the activation starts to expand, when you start to notice yourself getting dysregulated? I was at a car dealership yesterday trying to buy a car, and everything was going well until the salesperson came back with a price that was $8,000 more than I thought it was going to be. And I noticed myself start to feel uncomfortable. And I was definitely noticing myself feel uncomfortable based on saying, hey, I want to buy it for this price. You're telling me something different. And the salesman's own dysregulation, because he was just kind of like, well, this is it. What are you going to do? Take it or leave it. And as I was driving away, I noticed that in the past, I probably would have stayed there a lot longer, even though I wanted to leave, and then been resentful and angry and taking it personally, instead of being connected to my felt experience, knowing when it was time for me to go, and being able to very quickly attend to my nervous system experience and come back into regulation. So, some diverse stories here, right? I mean, I think the question is if this is resonating with you, what could this kind of preparation make possible in your life? And if you're thinking, okay, this is sounding cool, but I'm not sure if I'm ready, just, stay with me. Let's talk about readiness and why it's simpler than you think. If you want to do the work, in other words, if you want to experience that intentional transfer of energy, if you want to fix the displacements or create some displacements in your own experience, what's the cost of staying the same? What's the cost of doing it the exact same way? Uh, I did a lot of psychedelics and sort of had the same outcomes until I started taking preparation and integration more seriously. And it's not that I didn't have fun during the majority of those experiences. It's not that I didn't walk away with some great memories, but I also didn't get the change that I was looking for, implicitly or explicitly. Mushrooms started telling me I needed to stop drinking a couple of years before it actually happened. It wasn't the first time I got the call, I hung up the phone. I needed some gentle nudging quite a few times. And it was more than that. It was like, wow, you're really unhappy in your marriage. What are you going to do about that? Wow, you really need to maybe find a way to forgive your dad and fix your relationship there. Even the things that I'm working on now of like, hey, it's safe for you to show up and say the things that you want to say. You don't have to feel afraid or that people are going to leave you if you are authentic and honest with them. It's time to stop playing small. If you've been following the podcast or my newsletter, that's been on the forefront of my mind is like this realization that I'm chasing people instead of working with you who's ready to do the work, that's interested in what I'm sharing, and that I should stop doing that. So if you're not sure, I would say time's going to pass anyway, whether you're ready or not. And what's it going to be like if it stays stuck in the same loop? Maybe try something different. The benefits of taking preparation and integration more seriously is you get to feel embodied, you get to be more present, probably going to relate to people better around you. And if you're interested in doing the big work, right? The work that has a large potential for moving the needle, those big catalysts, you're going to get more transformation. So I would sum it up like this. If you keep doing the same thing and you're not doing any preparation, don't be upset if you feel like you're stuck in the same loop, or if you keep taking more medicine instead of doing more integration with very little change. But when you do build trust in yourself, in your nervous system, and you work on building that relationship with your inner healer first, you're making room for the transformation to land in your body. It's not just about having an experience, it's about being the medicine. You are the medicine. You become that. And so that's exactly what crossing the threshold is all about, is to give you practices and experience so that the part of you that knows that is ready can move and not be held back by the part of you that feels contraction or feels afraid. So if this is resonating, I would love to talk to you more. Reach out. Let's have a conversation. If today's episode spoke to you, share it, send me a DM, book a call. I'd love to support your path. We've got a great season coming up for you. Can't wait to continue this journey together. Thanks for listening to The Vital Point. You can join me at Blue Magic Alchemy on School or at bluemagicalchemy.com. Until our next episode, keep exploring, keep growing, and above all, keep practicing, because that's the vital point.